You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 92. We are live on a Tuesday. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me on the show. Hope it's been a great week, a great 2025 for you guys all, as we have an absolutely packed NFL show on the slate for you guys. Of course, before we go ahead and get started, y'all please make sure to like and share that stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell so you never miss a post. Of course, you know about the QR code. It's every bit of social media and podcast content. Link in the description below at the NFL with AJL on all social media platforms. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. I believe we should be live on TikTok and on Rumble as well, along with the usual Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch pages. I was trying to get Instagram to work, but for some reason it was not going super well. So y'all get in the chat, maybe on other platforms or even on that new platform that we're on, and let me know if you see us live on there. Like I said, guys, we have an absolutely packed show this evening, as we will be going over the AFC and NFC championship game recaps. Crazy games on both sides. The Cowboys and the Jaguars have hired new head coaches. Titans have hired a new GM. Klint Kubiak leaves New Orleans after 1 year. He is in Seattle. And some updates on the Saints head coaching search. Again, this is episode 92. You could have been anywhere else in the world. Please make sure to check us on all social platforms. We are rolling out that short form content again, and I would love to see you guys engage with that. Comment on the show, share the stream with someone that you really think would enjoy the show, as we're going to go ahead and jump right into the NFC championship game. And was this necessarily a game, right? As the Eagles rolled the Washington Commanders 55-23, the most points that have ever been put up in a championship game in NFL history in terms of conference championships. And just the way that this one played out was pretty disappointing for the Commanders, all things considered, because I was rooting for them. I didn't think they were going to win. But when you see a team like this in year one of a rebuild go this far with a rookie quarterback, you have to have some hopes for them, right? But Philly comes out on the first play of the game, gets a sack on Jaden Daniels, forced them into an early third down. And it was really a great conversion, I thought, of third and fourth down early on in Washington on that first drive. A lot of courage by Washington and Jaden Daniels there. You saw that offense going kind of quickly. They knew that they were up against literally the best defense in the NFL. Went for it on fourth down multiple times. But I was kind of wondering why they didn't go for it on fourth down again, as they had already got it the first couple of times, the two times that was on this first drive. They still got 3 points, but it took them 18 plays to grind out here in order to get just 3 points. I really thought that they could have went for a touchdown there, or really went for another fourth down conversion. Now, of course, when you get blown out by 32 in the playoffs, doesn't necessarily matter that much. But I was keeping an eye on I was keeping an eye on Jalen Hurts' knee the entire game. We saw that he had the brace on, took it off right before the game, and it was an absolute non-factor. I mean, we know his knee was just absolutely fine. Saquon Barkley going for 60 yards on the first play of this game was absolutely the last thing that Washington needed. And I said it, they were going to get blown out if they could not stop Saquon Barkley, if they could not contain him. And sure enough, they were blown out. They could not contain Saquon Barkley. And when you're not able to contain arguably the best player in the NFL, the best running back in the league by far, it's not even close, you're going to lose this game by 32, which is exactly what happened. You saw a lot of short game early on for Washington, a lot of underneath passes, and the Eagles secondary was really daring Jaden Daniels to throw it deep. Jaden Daniels dropped back 48 times this game, I believe. Let me scroll down and see if I'm correct on that. Yes, Jaden Daniels dropped back 48 times in this game, and he had his hands full all night as he was pressured on 30% of those dropbacks, and that was all with a four-man rush. So it's just more of a compliment, more of a shout out to Vic Fangio. And again, that Eagles secondary was just really daring Jaden Daniels to throw the ball deep. Zach Bond, of course, is all over this game early and often, forcing turnovers, recovering fumbles, and the Saints fans just continue to have the knife plunged deeper and twisted even more, knowing the mismanagement of Dennis Allen with this player. Saquon Barkley in this game was absolutely unreal. I mean, 2 touches, 2 touchdowns in just the first quarter, and that really set the tone for how the Commanders were going to get absolutely blasted, obliterated in the run game defensively, and nothing changed up from them there. I thought the fake punt from Washington also was kind of nice. It was, they needed something to really get them going, to change that momentum, to kind of steal a possession, and it somewhat did for them, but they didn't have anything going with the run game in this one, and it really was about time to abandon it. I think they should have really kind of earlier than they did. They weren't able to score. Philly just kept running up the scoreboard, and despite it being a rough start for Washington, though, they were still in the football game. They just needed to focus on clean offensive drives, and they were until they couldn't stop Philly anymore defensively. And of course, that's when the game progressively and really embarrassingly got away from them in Philadelphia, because after they let up the 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives, Washington's defense was kind of locking up, keeping Philly at bay, and then they're finally Philly's able to break through some of that defensive, lockup that Washington is showing them. They score at the end of the first half, but shout out the Commanders for stopping the tush push 4-2. That's a very hard play to stop. A lot of people saying that play will be banned in the offseason because it's just ridiculous how much the Bills, how much the Eagles can run it. Everybody in the league can run it, right? But nobody is as best at doing it as the Philadelphia Eagles. But the turnovers were absolutely the difference in this game for Washington. 4 turnovers, 21 points scored off of them, 3 of the turnovers being in plus territory for Philadelphia. So all things considered, Philly really didn't have to work that hard in this game to put up those 55 points because they were continuously gift wrapped possession after possession after possession. And it was just tough to see overall that this Washington team, yes, you can't necessarily say that, turnovers accounted for 32 points, but it definitely accounted for 21 of them. So if you take 32 minus 21, you got an 11-point discrepancy there, which is kind of the margin that they were down by for the good bit of the first half, again, until Philly pulled away. It seemed like Washington would score. Philly would just come right back and, score again. I thought Jaden Daniels had a really nice scramble to get into field goal range, allowing his kicker to get points at the end of the second half. Eagles get the ball back in the third quarter, and Washington did well, all things considered, to really kind of stuff them up, But in that first half, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, the 3 best offensive players for this Eagles offense, all had touchdowns, 101 total rushing yards that the team combined for. You come out, Washington does, you get back-to-back sacks on Philadelphia in this game to open up the second half, and that's exactly what you need. That was the perfect start for them to get this game rolling. You force a 3-and-out, but Washington didn't do anything with it. And there were a lot of empty possessions that I felt like Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury just absolutely left on the field, didn't necessarily put their rookie quarterback in the best situation to really be able to succeed. But Washington just straight up could not stop the run. The secondary was very handsy, as we saw. There were a lot of gaps, some busted coverages. Terry McLaurin was held for 1 catch for 7 yards by a rookie in Quinyon Mitchell, who is in the running for the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And that's no slight to Terry, but when you are a veteran, 6 years in this league, coming off your first playoff win, really first 2 playoff wins, and you're absolutely locked up by a rookie in Quinyon Mitchell. He had as many catches as you did. He slammed the door at the end of the game for the Eagles with the interception. So again, I'm not, this is not an indictment on Terry McLaurin, but more of a praise for Vic Fangio in the fact that those defensive rookies just absolutely have played out of their mind all freaking year. And Jaden Daniels continued to try to work through this game with his legs. He had a nice 2-point play to Olamide Zaccheaus, got Washington right back in it with being 11 points down again. So that was kind of the major margin again until they just really continue to turn the ball over. They weren't able to build any momentum. Philadelphia just really able to pull away. And there were multiple chances for Washington to climb back into this game. Again, that defense was starting to build momentum. You stole some, you forced the Eagles into some stale drives, and they just kept blowing it with turnovers. I want to talk about Frankie Louvu jumping the snap, which I thought was pretty remarkable in this game. I thought it was kind of a big IQ play that you can't really practice against a tush push. I mean, maybe you can try to mimic it with Jaden Daniels in practice, but he's not the elk of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is. They're on the 1-yard line. He jumps the snap. He continues to jump the snap again. Then the referee comes out. The whole story about the referees just doing or what they're not doing in these playoffs. It was an interesting remark by the ref saying that they can reward a score due to the multiple penalties of them trying to stop the score. And if you go look in the rule book, it is actually in the rule book. I don't know exactly where it is, but I remember seeing it on social media. So it was the right thing. But I've been watching the game of football for 20 years now, since 21 years, since 2004. And I had never seen anything like this in this magnitude of a game actually come out of a referee's mouth. And again, Washington would just score in this one, and Philly would continue to put the points right back up, continue to force the turnovers, continue to make Washington just play bad football and forcing them into stale offensive drives. A couple of situations in this game with the referees as well. There was a missed holding call on the Eagles on the 4th down conversion. I thought it was kind of a ticky-tack late hit call on Saquon Barkley. Now, yes, it was the right call, but let these guys play. You're talking about an elite running back in Saquon Barkley that is scampering to get out of bounds. And I want to say it was Sainer still that came up and laid the hit on him. Rightfully so. You hit guys big. That's what you're supposed to do. So I didn't like that ticky-tack call there. Again, let these guys play. And I understand the whole A.J. Brown, Marshawn Lattimore scuffle, but A.J. Brown literally ripped his helmet off, and Marshawn Lattimore was penalized for it. Now, yes, I want to say Marshawn did start. Saints are winning that trade, by the way. I want to say that Marshawn did start the altercation, but for no penalty to be thrown on the Eagles, just throw the flag, offsetting penalties, move on with your day. 7 rushing touchdowns given up by Washington is another big aspect here. 3 for Saquon, 3 for Jalen, 1 for Shipley. Again, Jaden Daniels dropped back 48 times in this game. He was pressured on 30 of them, or 62%. Nick Sirianni becomes the 3rd ever head coach to reach the Super Bowl twice within his first 4 seasons. Mike Tomlin is one of them, and I can't remember the first one that when I saw that stat on NFL Network. Again, the most points scored in any conference championship game in NFL history with 55. It's just an absolute domination by the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts now owns the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in postseason history. But as we hear all of these great comments for hey, leave me alone, babe. I'm comfortable in what I'm in. All right. I'm totally good. The people don't know that this is not a fresh outfit. And you're just going to get into the comments and throw me out there like that. What's up with that? I still love you, though. Baxi did it twice. Saquon is too good. Yeah, Saquon Barkley is ridiculously good, man. You can't say anything negative about the guy. But after all this remarks about the game, where does Washington go next after this loss? I think it's plain and simple. They need to get more star players on both sides of the ball. The roster is young for the most part. They just have to get more experience, get a little older. They were playing with house money. They were not supposed to be here. We absolutely know all that. But this roster was kind of makeshift coming into the year with an Austin Eckler, with a Zach Ertz, Olamide Zaccheaus. Of course, Diami Brown has been there. And I think you could get a little more dynamic on the edge rushers as well. Now, you were 12th in sacks on the year with 43, and they do have a solid roster overall, but they have a ton of cap space. I think the second most cap space with almost $100 million to spend this year in free agency. They're on that rookie quarterback deal, which is the most valuable thing in the NFL today. So they just simply have to go out and get more star power. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments, in the chat. Let me know what you think about this blowout of an NFC championship game, where Washington should go next, and the Eagles are now in their second Super Bowl in 4 years, making Nick Sirianni's job look very safe, and there's nothing left that you can say to drag this team, let alone all of the Jalen Hurts haters out there. AFC Championship game was one to absolutely remember, or maybe forget if you're a Bills fan, as the Chiefs escape with the win, 32-29. Josh Allen came into this game with the most postseason wins without a Super Bowl start ever, 7 of them. Patrick Mahomes comes in at 3-0. Now he is 4-0, throwing for over 300 yards a game, 8 touchdowns, now 11 touchdowns, including his rushing ones, if that's where the stat kind of implemented it at first when they were showing it on the TV. And no interceptions. I mean, yes, he did have that turnover where he was, handing the ball off. But outside of that, Patrick Mahomes does not make mistakes in the playoffs. And that's why when people don't look at the fact that Jalen Hurts does not make mistakes in the playoffs as well, does not throw interceptions, just like Patrick Mahomes, why doesn't Jalen get the same respect? With the Chiefs coming out, with the Bills coming out and having a 59-second first possession, that kind of just told you where the offensive game plan was going to possibly go from there on out. Now, yes, they did get better as the drives went on, but 2 awful throws from Josh Allen to start the game. Just breathe, brother. Breathe a little bit. Understand the situation that you're in. Obviously he couldn't have thrown 2 interceptions there, but his 2 first passes of the game were awful, and they were in harm's way. The Chiefs were getting the ball out quick. They were marching down the field. 90 yards for the score with such ease. And that was kind of embarrassing to see. Like, Sean McDermott is a defensive-minded coach. You have a solid defense. Now, yes, all things considered, it did not look good in this game because Sean McDermott still is giving up 35 points per game in all 4 of his playoff losses to the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's not Josh Allen. Josh Allen is doing enough. His coach and his defense are simply failing him. And the Bills were struggling to contain Patrick Mahomes early on. That's very unfortunate because you see he was the one that had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game, and he beat them multiple times, made multiple plays. At one point in this game, he was 5 for 5 on third down scrambles. That's something that you have to contain if you want to have any chance at beating one of the best quarterbacks to ever play this game in Mahomes in the AFC Championship game, which he's never not seen in Arrowhead, where he's never not played said game. The Bills fans knew this. Sean McDermott knew this. That entire defense knew this. Thankfully, Buffalo is able to capitalize off of that lousy turnover from Kansas City. That, again, Kansas City just doesn't ever make mistakes like that. And again, they were able to capitalize off that. If they wouldn't have been able to, I think we stare at that moment very intensely in the game. And it seemed like Josh Allen was just trying to play too much hero ball. I don't know if it was just me, but it seemed like he didn't want to really rely on Shakir, on Coleman, on Hollins. James Cook had a hell of a day. Multiple catches with multiple touches with over 100 yards. We'll get to those specific numbers in a second. And I don't know if it was necessarily Joe Brady not setting him up correctly, which we do have to take a look at. Of course, Sean McDermott's defense, maybe that made Josh feel like he had to play hero ball. Maybe he still is encapsulating the 13 seconds to when he came off the field and his defense sold him. I don't know exactly what it is, but thought Josh Allen was, at certain points, they depended a little too much on him. And I get it. It's the best player. You live and die with your best player. But situational football is what wins games in this league. And speaking of how porous that Bills defense was early on, Kansas City at one point had 26 plays with 15 first downs. It was actually with about 3 minutes to go in the second quarter. They'd only faced 3 third downs at all up until that point. The offense was just clicking much more in this game than it was in the Texans game. I mean, it was night and day. I got to admit, I'm pretty unsure about that big play from Mahomes to Worthy at the end of the second quarter. If you ask me, it looked like an incomplete pass, or if anything, a Buffalo interception. I really thought that defender had more possession and just control of the ball overall than Xavier Worthy did. It hitting the ground is not really my problem, because you can catch the ball and it can hit the ground. It just can't move. It just didn't look so much like a completed pass to Kansas City, and everybody is raving about it. And I don't blame them. It's a shitty call. It should have been a corrected call. And if we're going to see something like this in the Super Bowl be called incomplete, everybody is going to look right back to this moment. Josh Allen had a big play at the end of the second quarter to, get the Bills into field goal range. Another bomb to Matt Collins also for the touchdown. So you saw Josh was really having to be that superhero, and rightfully so. Darby, the script is written. Chiefs win. Travis proposes to Taylor. Travis actually already proposed to Taylor. It's just really been down on the low, and I'm even surprised about that. Announces his retirement shortly after. If Kelsey did that, bro, I wouldn't be shocked. He'd be a 4-time champ. He's getting older. Possibly he wins a Super Bowl MVP. He's part of a dynasty. I wouldn't blame Trav if he decided to step away. I really wouldn't. Josh Allen needs to be better. Yeah, he does. I think he was solid, all things considered, but he clearly, could have been better. Allen and Jackson can't win the big game. Yeah, they absolutely can. It sucks big time for two elite guys like Josh Allen and almost said Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson just not being able to punch their tickets into the biggest games. And that's just so embarrassing at certain points. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has played an AFC championship game outside of Kansas City, and he won it because the Ravens only put up 10 points. Now, Kansas City only put up 17. But at some point, Lamar and Josh have to get over the hump. I mean, they simply just have to. So when you looked at, as this game's going on, you're like, all right, this is what the Bills have to do to adjust at halftime. They got to force Kansas City into more third downs and punts, which they really didn't. You have to get to the quarterback, which they really didn't. And you got to keep it out of a one-score game, because the Chiefs came into this game winning 16 straight one-score games. It's the most in NFL history, including regular season and postseason. I think actually dating all the way back to the Super Bowl last year, if I'm not mistaken, or clearly it was right after the season started this year. And now they have won 17 straight, a full NFL regular season slate of one-score games. Obviously, it wouldn't date back to the Super Bowl, because now we're, 20 games into the season. It's his 20th game that the Chiefs have played. Again, Mahomes was 5 for 5 on first down scrambles to open the second half, and the Bills just really failed to contain him there. I thought the Bills losing Benford was really, really major for the defense. He has been a playmaker at very pivotal parts for them this season, and it's never easy to lose one of your star defensive players and continue to think that you can have those same effects defensively. Patrick Mahomes was also perfect on third down passing as well at some point in this game. With about 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, he was 3 for 3, 46 yards, and 3 first downs on third down passes before Matt Milano got in, was able to take him down and kind of disrupt some of that flow that was there. I got to give some blame to Joe Brady, though. Josh Allen only having 3 rushes in the first half, and really just 2 since the opening play, which was a design quarterback run. And your running backs only having 8 carries in the first half was not a recipe for success. I mean, we know how good that James Cook and Josh Allen are. And I love seeing James Cook come around, He's a damn good dog, and I'm very, very glad that Buffalo is just really utilizing him correctly. And it's probably a good thing that Joe Brady's staying there because this offense needs to stay high-powered and elite. But then the run game started to come back around at the end of the third quarter. You had Cook, you had Johnson, you had Josh Allen. On that touchdown drive that they had, 8 straight rushes, 10 total rushes with 1 pass. It led them to a touchdown on their best drive thus far of the game. James Cook himself had 5 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. And I really thought that they leaned into their strength on that drive because in the first 5 drives, they had 43 yards. And then that touchdown drive itself had 73 rushing yards in terms of 43 rushing yards on the first 5 drives. They finished with 30 carries for 147 yards, which is pretty solid, all things considered, about 5 yards a carry, and especially against a Steve Spagnuolo defense. But it was too little, too late. And when you don't allow James Cook to have a bigger game than 16 touches for 134 yards and a touchdown, averaging 6.5 yards a carry, I still thought he needed to have more touches in this game. And I think that shows with the slim margin on the scoreboard because there were no turnovers from Buffalo. There were no turnovers from Josh Allen. I mean, how much better could your best player play? You have to get the ball out of his hands because he cannot do it all the time. The 4th and 1 to open the fourth quarter, no James Cook in the backfield was very confusing, but you live and die with your best player in Josh Allen, and he was able to deliver. And you got to give credit to Buffalo. I mean, being able to lean on the run after many, many years of just being very Josh Allen-centric. Sean McDermott and, Josh Allen had always been dubbed as that team, that duo, coach and quarterback, that weren't able to really engineer a great run game later in the season. They couldn't run the ball in December. They couldn't run the ball in February. And if you can't do that, you're usually not playing in February in the Super Bowl. So it felt at certain points in this game that they were Josh Allen-centric no more, but I stand to be corrected as that is kind of what happened as this game went on. The 4th and 1 call that the referees botched for Josh Allen getting over the line, I can't even get over that at this point. The call before it was spotted a little short, and the fact that you have one ref coming out saying that it was fine, another ref coming out behind it saying that it's not. Allen was over the line, if not, just at it, which I think if you get to the first down line on a pivotal 4th down play like that, or really any play, right? You got to the line to gain, so give it to him. Give it to them. They can get to the goal line and just the tip of the ball has to go over. So give it to them. If not, change the rule to where the entire ball has to get over it because as it stands, Josh Allen should have been given that first down. And of course, the Chiefs go down the field, score instantly from that turnover on downs. And it just makes everybody sick seeing the game play out like this. I mean, it felt like we were robbed potentially of a better game because of these calls. But I got to give out a shout out to Andy Reid, getting Patrick Mahomes pretty mobile in this game. The first postseason game with 2 rushing touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes, multiple conversions with his legs when he needed it. And at one point, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes were just trading big plays. I mean, Allen had the huge throw to Hollins to put them in the red zone. Both teams scored a touchdown every time they got to the red zone, which was very remarkable. I was a little curious about the Bills going for it on 4th and goal later in this game. I was wondering if they should just kick the field goal and trust the defense. Clearly, they weren't able to do that as that defense gave up 32 points. Again, Sean McDermott's defenses are giving up 35 points per game in the 4 losses to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs. But it paid off beautifully. They scored. So it was fine. It was absolutely fine. And even despite a face mask, putting Kansas City past midfield and then marching down the field, for once that Bills defense stood up, put great pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and really forced a field goal. But final play of the game, it was an amazing blitz by Spags, an exotic blitz that he held in the bag the entire time, really the entire postseason or game at least. And even Tony Romo called it, forced Josh Allen into a wild throw, but wildly enough that could have been caught. Josh put it in a place for his receiver to catch it. Now, that is a crazy catch. That is a heck of a catch to try to make with multiple defenders around you. But your best player, your quarterback, gave you a chance. And you simply weren't able to deliver with it. The Bills really gave it everything they had, I thought, for the most part, outside of not giving James Cook a few more touches and getting a little more creative with the pass game for you to lose by 3 in Arrowhead. The Bills fans shouldn't hang their heads too much. I really felt like the Bills just about left it all out there on the field. So I don't know what more can really be drawn from this. Yeah, he did already propose. James Cook had a badass touchdown on that drive. Yeah, he did. He had a very, very nice touchdown on that drive. And I really appreciated the fact that he was able to excuse me, get in the end zone. It was a tough one to get in the end zone for sure. I mean, he really had to stretch out for it, but that's what you got to do against Steve Spagnuolo. That's what you have to do against these defenses. No question about it. And, just how much better could have Josh Allen played? I mean, seriously, how much better could Josh Allen have played in this game? No turnovers. I mean, he did fumble, but he did recover it. He had almost 2 interceptions at the start of the game, but he pulled that together. 65% completion, played just as well as Patrick Mahomes. The final throw was catchable, but that Sean McDermott defense, giving up 35 points per game and all 4 losses to Kansas City, is the major takeaway from this. I mean, seriously. And you didn't force the Chiefs into more 3rd and 4th down scenarios. The Chiefs were 60% on 3rd and 4th down in total in this game, 6 for 10. The Bills were 9 of 20. You have to get more creative offensively. It's a good thing that Joe Brady's staying there, because I was very curious if we saw what it was like with Ken Dorsey. I stand to be corrected, as Joe Brady has done great things. But you have to ask yourself, now, where does Buffalo go after this loss? I think you got to get more star power at wide receiver, possibly a better running back too, with a new defensive scheme as well. I don't think firing Sean McDermott is the exact answer, because if you look at his defensive ranks over the years with the Buffalo Bills, in 2017, when he first took over as the coach, 18th in points, 26th in yards, not so great. In his second year, they were still 18th in points, but they were 2nd in yards. In that third year, in the 2019 season, they were 2nd in points, 3rd in yards. 2020, 16th in points, 14th in yards. 2021, best defense in the league, 1st in points, 1st in yards. Followed it up in 22 and 23 with 2nd in points, 4th in points, 6th in yards, 9th in yards. And then this year they fall back a little bit, 11th in points, not horrible, and 17th in yards. You can kind of get away with giving up a decent amount of yards in the league, but how is your red zone defense? How is your situational football? That's the real question. So if we're going to sit here and say that a head coach 4 out of his 8 seasons gave you a top 5 to the best defense in the NFL, I don't think that's really your answer. What better coach is out there? Are you going to promote Joe Brady, which I don't think would be a bad idea, honestly, now that I think about it here on the show? That would probably be your next guy in line. But I don't think firing Sean McDermott is the answer. You need to go get more star power at wide receiver. I get it. Shakir, Coleman, Hollins, great stories, great guys. But Amari Cooper, yes, is a solid receiver, but he's a 10-year veteran. He's not very special anymore. And before you guys come at me in the comments, I just don't believe he's a game changer anymore, at least not for this Buffalo Bills team. You take him over, maybe put him with a young quarterback who really needs some good experience, like a Jaden Daniels, maybe a Drake May, just spitballing. Veteran leadership, showing him how to lead him correctly on routes, that's great. But I don't believe Sean McDermott being fired is the answer, and you simply just have to go get more star power at wide receiver and get somebody to really complement James Cook. Ty Johnson's solid, but you need a 1-2 punch in today's league. In the NFL, you need a 1-2 punch at the running back position. So I'd love for y'all to get in the comments and in the chat. Let me know your takeaways from the AFC title game. Where do you think that the Bills should go after this? Do you believe Sean McDermott being fired is the answer? Again, I don't, but I love to hear from you guys down low. Brian Schottenheimer has been promoted from offensive coordinator to the Cowboys head coach, and Cowboys fans are sick. They are disgusted. And honestly, I don't blame them, because I didn't necessarily see this coming. I mean, I'm sitting here asking myself, was this really the best Dallas could do? Knowing that Ben Johnson was on the market, which we didn't think he was going to go there. Knowing that Liam Coen was on the market. Knowing that Pete Carroll got plucked from the Seahawks. Knowing that all these head coaching vacancies got filled. Maybe a Joe Brady. Maybe a Cliff Kingsbury. And I respect those guys staying with their respective teams and wanting to focus on the playoff runs. But this was an extreme Jerry Jones hire. There's no way to get around that. Jerry Jones wants that control, and Marty Schottenheimer, God rest his soul, Brian Schottenheimer, his son, was already in the building. So why go look outside the building if you're a control freak when you know someone internally who already knows how you work can step up and work at the table for you? I don't think it was the best that they could do, but everyone knows how Jerry Jones does business. He wants to be the face of it. He's a controlling owner. He's also the GM. Like, he doesn't have to have permission from anybody or go around anybody to make these decisions. I'm not necessarily mad that they promoted an OC internally, but this wasn't the best they could do. And if you want to come out here and say in your opening presser that you're going to win the championship, but Jerry's sitting right next to you, who are you trying to fool, me or yourself? I mean, genuinely, who are you trying to fool? Because you're not fooling the fans. The fact that this broke, I think Saturday night, Sunday night, maybe Friday night when I was doing the show, Jerry Jones was trying to have this news covered up best he could, and it wasn't. So this was not the best that they could do. And I honestly did not see this exact hire coming, but I'm not surprised because Jerry Jones wants to keep the control. If we're talking about what, maybe Schottenheimer can bring to the table, there's no money to spend currently in cap space, so he's going to be able to have fun with that. In 2023, they were first in points, fifth in yards, and then, of course, this year they fall to 21st in points and 17th in yards. Understandingly, we know that Dak Prescott is injured. So I think a dynamic modern offense isn't necessarily out of the question because he's shown that he can do that when he's got a healthy quarterback, when he's got a healthy roster. In the intro presser, he said they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not knocking him for that. Yes, it's funny that, in 29 years, they haven't been to a conference title game or a Super Bowl. The Eagles have now been to two Super Bowls, 2 conference title games. The Commanders have been there. The Giants have been to 2 conference title games and won 2 Super Bowls. The entire division has went to the Super Bowl or the championship game since the Cowboys have done it. And the Giants and Eagles have done it twice. So when you take that into context, it seems like a laughable matter, right? But what else is the head coach supposed to say? Because he had a great sentiment. If you're not here to win the big game, then what are you doing? There's only one team each year that can win that game, and there's nothing wrong with aspiring to be that team. So, of course, when the Cowboys say that it's their year every year, that's why he's going to get pushback on that. He's a first-time head coach after 25 years of coaching experience. So, that is a good thing, all things considered. He does have some interviews that he's put in over the last 6 years overall. And when you look at some of his experiences that he's had in the NFL as offensive coordinator, outside of 2023, when Dallas was 5th in yards and 1st in points. In 2019, Seattle was 8th in yards and 9th in points. But from 2018 all the way back to 2006, between the Seahawks, the Jets, and the St. Louis Rams at the time, he had one season in 2010 with the Jets, 11th in yards, 13th in points. In 2008 with the Jets, 16th in yards, 9th in points. But on average, he was in the low 10s, high to mid 20s, even 30th, low 20s at certain points for yards and points per game. A little better on points per game, but outside of a couple of years, and the league has moved past the offenses that played in 2009, the offenses that played in 10, even the offenses from arguably 2018. That's different now. So if you're talking about Schottenheimer running a modern day offense, he's only given you one solid year of it. And that was in 2023 when the team was completely healthy. If you want to give him credit for 2018 in Seattle, if you want to give him credit for 2019 in Seattle, I'll give that to you. But after that, there was 4 years of 28th, 30th, 23rd, and 25th in yards, and 21st, 21st, 25th, and 13th in points. So it's tough, and I really see why Cowboys fans aren't too happy about it. I personally don't blame them. I really don't, because, again, this was not the best they could do. This feels like a prime Jerry Jones hire. Just when you thought Jerry Jones couldn't Jerry Jones anymore, he Jerry Joneses you. And there's no way to beat around that bush. He said he was going to win a Super Bowl like his dad, Marty, wasn't able to. Again, God rest his soul. Stephen Jones said that Marty Schottenheimer was the perfect blend of continuity with new changes incoming. Brian Schottenheimer, Brian said that they're built to win quickly. Don't necessarily know about that. He also said he's a great play caller, but he's even better with people. But then you have Jerry Jones sitting right there saying, this is a big a risk as you can take because he's never been a head coach. You're right, Jerry. He does have 25 years of coaching experience, but I think deep down you understand that his offenses aren't all cracked up as they are to be. They're just not. I just told you the numbers, and outside of 2023, what can you show me from Brian Schottenheimer that really makes you believe he's able to be this head coach? He is qualified and fit to be this head coach. I'll give you a little bit of a record prediction here with Brian Schottenheimer. I think they'll go 3-3 in the division. I think they'll get swept by the Eagles. I think they'll split with the Commanders, and I think they'll also sweep the Giants. So overall, they'll go 9-8. I have them for sure winning games against the Panthers, the Raiders, and the Cardinals. I can even possibly say iffy against the Panthers. But the iffy wins that I have on here are the Bears, the Vikings, and the Jets. I think they could very well lose all of those games. I even think possibly that they could lose to the Cardinals. So this could be a 5-6 win football team for in the coming year. And Cowboys fans ain't ready for that. Yes, I understand you just went through a very tough year with Dak Prescott injured, but Cowboys fans are going to be even sicker than they are now if that season plays out the way that I'm predicting that it does, just based off the opponents, not the exact schedule that has been put out for the Cowboys. So again, I'd love to see y'all in the chat in the comments about Brian Schottenheimer being promoted from offensive coordinator to the Cowboys head coach. Liam Coen has been hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars Liam Coen has been hired by the Jacksonville Jaguars as their next head coach. And this is an absolutely wild story. I'll basically give you some of the cliff notes here because the story of how he got promoted / got this job is crazy. So Liam Coen interviews with the Jaguars. That's really the simplest part of the story. When Tampa Bay was eliminated, Jacksonville brought him in. He met with ownership, and at the time, he met with the GM, Trent Baalke, I guess is what you could say. Liam Coen left without a deal. Also, although he was considered widely as the front runner for the job, that was kind of the calm before the storm and really the craziness that came out. Well, Wednesday morning reports emerged that Liam Coen had informed the Jags that he was removing his name from consideration for the head coaching job, and he wasn't even interested in a second interview. Speculation was that a blocker for Coen taking the job was the Jaguars GM, one of the least talented, most revealed general managers in the NFL. He had somehow been retained after Doug Peterson was fired, much to the chagrin of Jaguars fans. They were not happy about it, and even the rest of the world was shocked, especially the NFL culture. So Shao Kahn said, okay, I'll fire him. I'll get him out of here. We'll get him to go so we can possibly have our head coaching search opened up even more. I mean, taking Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson in the 2022 NFL draft was horrible. And then you have a bunch of behind-the-scenes things that just say his reputation was really, really hard to work with. Excuse me, not Shao Kahn, freaking Mortal Kombat character. I think it's Shad Khan. Yes, the owner of the Jaguars. Shad Khan said, okay, I'll get him out of there. I'll absolutely get him out of there. I want to open up the doors for more to happen. And that's what the fans wanted. And Jaguars fans were happy about it. So Tampa Bay is left over here on the sidelines. Liam Coen was going to be made the highest paid coordinator in the NFL, I think at around $12 million a year. Tampa Bay was ready to give him that bag. Then the Jaguars fired the GM. The Buccaneers reacted. Knowing that it was in response to Coen withdrawing his name, the team reportedly offered him a new contract. He said he would accept it. He never signed it. The Bucs said that's okay. Not that signing it was okay. The only caveat is if you accept this position, you cannot go interview with the Jaguars again. But again, he never officially signed the deal. Then the Jags come in, make Liam Coen an offer that he just can't refuse. Reportedly, they offered him serious power to shape the franchise, to really shape the franchise as he saw fit. I mean, they were giving him the reins to be able to come in. So you can't blame Liam Coen for taking the job. It's just the way that he took the job. He got on the plane to Jacksonville after Jags ownership called him directly and explained that they will let him pick the general manager and they would pay him Ben Johnson level money along with multiple years per Diana Rossini. So again, all context provided, you can't blame Liam Coen for taking the job. There's only 32 NFL head coaching jobs, and he had a claim at one of them. It was either be the highest paid coordinator or go get Ben Johnson level money, and you can pick the GM, and we'll let you shape the franchise and build it at basically in your vision. And it was just too good of an offer to pass up. I mean, seriously. So then the Buccaneers are just left in the cold. They're trying to reach out to him on Thursday. Apparently he, was just ignoring them completely, put them on the back burner, put them on the sideline. People were saying that it was BS, that Liam Coen was, in the hospital with his kid, and the fact that, he was just using that as an excuse to stay away from the Bucs. Well, shout out his wife, Ashley Coen, actually coming in and defending the situation. Quote, "I hate that I even have to say this, but when people are negative about my kids, I will not be silent. Our son is sick. We were at the hospital yesterday seeing a specialist for his autoimmune disease. Please don't spread misinformation and assume because you heard one side. Good for you, Ashley Coen. I couldn't agree more. Definitely couldn't agree more." So if all this context really surrounding this is actually true, then Liam Coen didn't necessarily do the wrong thing. If he was tied up with his kid, never officially signed the contract, which maybe you can give him fault for that, and he went and got the chance to run the reins of the franchise, can you really blame him? Because I don't think I can. But can you? If someone came forward and offered you a life-changing position and you hadn't officially signed the contract and committed to a previous job, albeit how great it could have been, you would probably take the other job as well. Now, maybe your actions would have been a little different, but guess what? Life ain't fair. Business ain't fair. You got to get used to it. It's just what it is. And I understand that Bucs fans are going to be in their feelings and Jags fans might feel a little bit indifferent about it, especially after his intro presser. But the dust is settled. It's done. And there's nothing more left to it. Apparently, Albert Breer reports that Jacksonville had asked Coen to keep everything under wraps because they were not yet compliant with the Rooney Rule, having only interviewed one minority candidate. And this whole Rooney Rule thing is, it just continues to get dragged out and continue to have loopholes found around it, So all things considered, it is pretty crazy how Liam Coen did come around and take that job. Again, can you blame him, though? Because I really don't think that I can. And we got to hope that he can translate his ways from Tampa Bay to Jacksonville, because in 2024, the Bucs had the fourth best offense in points and the third best offense in yards. He led Baker Mayfield to the third ever quarterback along with Joe Burrow this year. And 2011-2012 Drew Brees with 4,500 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, and 70% completion. So there's nothing but big time credit to give to Liam Coen, because Baker Mayfield had to go from the Browns being mishandled, going to the Panthers, being mishandled, having Dave Canales as his offensive coordinator. He gets poached and goes to the Panthers, which he just came from, still had a top offense that year, still had a great year that year. But then Liam Coen comes in and gets the absolute best out of him. And this is exactly what Trevor Lawrence needs. Now, this is going to be Trevor Lawrence's third offensive coordinator and third head coach and scheme going into year 5. So if Liam Coen got the best out of Baker Mayfield after he had a rough career and then, switching him off from Dave Canales to Liam Coen's situation, why can't he do the same thing with another number one overall pick in Trevor Lawrence? They're 16th in the NFL in cap space with $35 million. They've got the fifth overall pick, and they could and need to go grab another wide receiver for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that's just the facts of the situation, genuinely. And when you look at Trevor Lawrence in 2021, 32nd offense in points, 27th offense in yards. 2022, 10th in points, 10th in yards. 2023, 13th in points, 13th in yards. In 2024, 26th in points, 25th in yards. So it was bad, got pretty good, went back to bad again. Liam Coen's probably going to come out and give this team a top 5, top 10 offense. And I don't think that's any question or any confusing remark to throw at it, because we've seen what Liam Coen did in his year with the Bucs, with Baker Mayfield. Imagine what he's going to be able to do with Trevor Lawrence. Yes, there was a Mike Evans. There was a Chris Godwin. There were rookie running backs that, the Bucs were able to deal with, and Liam Coen was able to have at his disposal. But I think he'll be able to turn this offense into something very special, and Jag fans should be very excited about it. Record prediction, I do think that it's still going to be a rough season, though, overall for the Jags, because their schedule doesn't necessarily favor them. I think they'll go 6-11 at home, 6-11 overall, 4-5 at home, 2-6 on the road, 3-3 in the division. I think they'll get swept by the Texans. I think they'll sweep the Titans, and then I think they'll have a split with the Colts. Their wins are 2 wins against the Titans, the Colts, the Raiders, the Panthers and the Jets, which both could be iffy. The Panthers and the Jets could very well be losses. So are we looking into the abyss of another 4-13 year for the Jacksonville Jaguars like they just had? Having the 5th overall pick? Having to bring in a new coach because Doug Peterson didn't get the job done, which I really hate that he was fired, but he just wasn't able to get it done. 16th in the NFL in cap space with $35 million. You have the opportunity to be a better team than what I'm predicting. You have a good quarterback who's on the verge of possibly being a bust. You already gave him his money, though. You have a great offensive mind. Maybe it was just for 1 year. 2022 Rams wasn't that great, but 2024 Bucks was absolutely phenomenal. Again, 4th in points, 3rd in yards. There's not many negatives that you can throw at Liam Coen for what he's done. Yes, maybe how he took the job, but for the offense that he's built and the offense that he's going to bring to the Jags into Jacksonville, nothing to slice your head at. Absolutely nothing to slice your head at whatsoever. This has been the NFL with AJL episode 92, 93. Good Lord. Am I going to learn which episode it is? I'm just like, okay, 92. The NFL with AJL episode 92. You guys could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me onto the show. Y'all please make sure to like and share that stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube, please and thank you. We are blowing past the 1,000 subscriber mark on the road to 1,100 subs. It's not possible without you guys. If you want to drop a super chat or a super like on YouTube to donate to the show, that will be very much appreciated. You can also DM me on social media if you'd like to donate to the show as well. We can have a conversation there. The bell right here, if you hit the bell, it'll give you every bit of YouTube content that we put out, whether we're live, whether it's a short form clip, or whether it is a medium form clip from the show. Would definitely love to have you guys engage over there. The QR code, every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. The link is down in the description. If you can't find us, you're simply not looking hard enough. And again, we are on that short form content, again, putting it out a few times a week. I'd love to be putting it out multiple times or more than I am now, multiple times a day, but we're doing what we can and doing our best to give you guys that amazing content. And as always, we're sponsored by Buy and Sell with AJL for all your worldwide professional real estate needs. Whether you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, or invest in real estate, this is the team that you need to be working with. You can get on their monthly newsletter, you can get on their monthly value emails, their monthly neighborhood market reports, or even start going to their new real estate meetups that they just launched over here in Georgia. Great way to network, find your first or next real estate deal, and overall get your feet wet in the game of real estate. And as also we're sponsored by PrayStation, as you see on the hat right there, at PrayStation Online for the best gaming and faith/worship collaboration on the market. It's the praying hands in the PlayStation colors. You can get it on a hat, a beanie, any type of apparel, a sticker, you name it, they can probably make it for you. Use code AJL at checkout for a special surprise on your order at PrayStation Online, at Buy and Sell with AJL, always faithful sponsors of the show, and we couldn't appreciate them more for giving us their time. Bobby Slowik was fired after 2 years, just 2 years into the Texans rebuild and 2 years of being the offensive coordinator. And I was absolutely shocked by this move, again, as Bobby Slowik is fired by the Texans after just 2 years of being offensive coordinator. He was 13th in points and 12th in yards in year one of C.J. Stroud, and I think that had a lot to do with why C.J. Stroud looked so good. We know that C.J. Stroud had an amazing rookie year. He was in MVP conversations. He was already in top 10 talks as a quarterback. Then you go to this year, 19th in points, 22nd in yards. So, yes, I was very, very shocked, considering how this team was coming together. 2 of your 3 best receivers, and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, both had season-ending injuries. Thankfully, Nico Collins was still around. You had a bad offensive line. And, I think the big thing was he wasn't good at halftime adjustments. He would come out hot in the first half, kind of fizzle out in the second half. And that's just not something you can do in today's NFL. You really can't. Especially with as offensively driven as this league is, you have to be able to adjust and you have to be able to keep your offenses consistently going. I'm so shocked because you moderately, not majorly, moderately fall off in offensive categories. But CJ did have a sophomore slump. He still looked decent, all things considered, without his top 2 receivers, with a bad offensive line that failed him tremendously in the playoffs. We saw that in the divisional round against the Chiefs. So I just don't think it was a rightful firing. I really don't. You're in year 2 of a rebuild. You have a great quarterback, and I understand they probably have very tight standards because they want to be able to keep this level of play up in Houston, but I just don't think it was a justified firing. I really don't. I think he should have had more time. When you lose 2 of your top 3 receivers, when you don't have a solid offensive line, which are 2 very pivotal parts of your quarterback, you've got the head coach position, right? I guess they were afraid that Bobby Slowik was going to retract and, just possibly not improve. Maybe give CJ Stroud a junior year slump. I don't know exactly what they were thinking. I really don't, but I hate to see Bobby Slowik go. So who would we possibly like to see paired with CJ Stroud next? There are reports of Chip Kelly. We know that he is the offensive coordinator for Ohio State, who did just win the national championship in college football. I can see Chip Kelly staying because Ohio State is actually favored next year to win the national championship as well, and rightfully so that they should be. They have a great coach in Ryan Day. They have a great offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly. Now, he can be a little stubborn at times, trying to run the ball too much, which I don't think the Texans should take interest in running the ball heavily. Joe Mixon is great. We understand that you have to establish the run game in the NFL to get the play action, to get the defense spread out wide, to just really establish a pivotal part of the offense. So I think Chip Kelly would be a good hire, all things considered. He's got plenty of NFL experience. He's got plenty of coaching experience as it is. So Chip Kelly could be a very good hire here for the Texans to complement CJ Stroud. And then there's reports of Syracuse's offensive coordinator, Jeff Nixon, who actually helped engineer the #1 passing offense in the country. Syracuse's quarterback, Kyle McCord, broke the ACC single-season passing record, which is very phenomenal to see. That takes a lot of work, knowing how great Cam Ward was this year, and he was able to throw for about 400 more yards than him. Syracuse actually played – did they upset Miami? I can't remember. I want to say they played Miami close, though. And for Kyle McCord to be able to have the year that he did, the season that he did, breaking an ACC single-season passing record, I think those would be the top 2 candidates. You either go get Chip Kelly from Ohio State because he's an excellent play caller, and I think CJ Stroud could really use that veteran leadership as he's already got in DeMeco Ryans as a former player. Chip Kelly from the Eagles culture, fresh off of a national championship win. I mean, literally, Ohio State turned into a juggernaut, an absolute buzzsaw, a slobber knocking of a team. The Death Star of college football emerged under a Chip Kelly offense, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. If you're not going to go for him, and maybe you don't want to poke into the college football world because both of these guys are college offensive coordinators, but they've got the numbers to back it up. They're rightfully so in this conversation. It's not like they're in this conversation for no reason. It's not like they just weren't able to excuse me, it's not like they just weren't able to, make things happen. Their names are in this conversation for a reason. Again, one of them won a national championship. One of them led the #1 passing offense in the country and had their quarterback in Kyle McCord break the single-season ACC passing record, I think, with about 4,700 yards passing. So both of those could be very good. All things considered, I'd love to see one of these 2 guys get hired, and I'm going to keep my eyes glued to it as the time goes on because, again, I really hate how Bobby Slowik was fired. I think that, he deserved some more time. The Titans hired the Chiefs' assistant GM, Mike Borgonzi, who is the 16-year Chiefs assistant general manager. So we already know what he's credited with. He's been there since 2009. So he's watched Andy Reid come in. He watched the team be stacked with Alex Smith, who they brought in. He had a hand more than likely in drafting Tyreek Hill. Now, you got to be careful with that assistant GM because people say that he was kind of the do-boy early on, and then he moved his way up. Probably had a hand in drafting Tyreek Hill, getting Travis Kelce. Like, when you're assisting the GM who is helping make these decisions, you got to deserve some credit. Getting Patrick Mahomes, winning 3 Super Bowls with a chance to win your 4th. Well, was a chance to win your 4th until you got hired as the GM. You were in the middle of a dynasty. Tons of positives. I mean, coming from the best NFL team over the last 6-7 years. And now he is your GM. He is not an assistant GM. He is now your general manager. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think this is at least an 8.5 to a 9. You're going to tell me that an assistant GM who is coming from a team, again, who has won 3 Super Bowls, been to 4 while you were there. Now they're in the 5th with a chance to three-peat with a team that you helped build. I don't know if there's any negatives from this. I really don't. Titans fans have every right to be happy about it. They have the number 1 overall pick. I'm going to look up really quick how much cap space they have because I didn't even think of diving into that. The Titans have $44 million in cap space. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if I counted that correctly. Yes, the Titans are 11th in cap space. They have the number 1 overall pick. They just hired a new GM. Brian Callahan can still be a solid coach. I know people weren't sold on him in year 1, but you had Will Levis, all things considered. DeAndre Hopkins is traded away from the Titans over to the Chiefs, so you end up losing a guy in DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, this team was down to the studs just about. A very awful, excuse me, guys, a very awful Titans roster. It just was not good. There's no way around it. So Brian Callahan deserves a little more slack, but when you get a GM in the building like this, who is responsible for what he did with the Chiefs, excuse me, guys, the Titans are very, very much on their way to a very nice rebuild. I mean, having a guy like this in the building can help you make those effective trades. Grab that quarterback of the future, even though I do believe the Titans do need to commit to developing a quarterback, seriously, because you take Malik Willis, you take Will Levis. What's the situation here? What is truly the situation here for this GM to jump in and get a quarterback? You have the number 1 overall pick. Is it going to be Cam Ward? Is it going to be Shedeur Sanders? Is it going to be some of, is it going to be a Travis Hunter? I do believe that it should possibly be a skill position player outside of quarterback. Now, we know quarterback is very important, but Will Levis didn't have a lot to work with. And I think if you give him another year with Brian Callahan, you'll see a better improvement. I don't think you'll see as bad as it was. But if the Titans have the number 1 overall pick, can they really pass on a quarterback like Shedeur or Cam Ward? It's going to be a hard decision. It really is. So if we had to estimate a length of the rebuild, essentially, until Tennessee is competitive again, I'd say about 3 years, probably. Maybe 2 if they're lucky. 1 if it's a godsend rebuild. Let's just say that. But these teams that have been able to turn around in 1 year, like the Texans, like the Commanders, like the Bengals kind of did in 1, maybe 2 years if you want to be technical, I think it might be pushing up on 3, before the Bengals turned it around. I'm going to say about 3 years. You need to get a quarterback in there that you can develop. This roster is bare, so you need defensive talent at a lot of positions. Or excuse me, not defensive talent, because I know that the Titans were actually 2nd in the league this year in defense, which is very remarkable. But when you look at what the offense hasn't necessarily been capable of, you're going to need to build that roster up. You're really, really going to need to build that roster up because it's nothing to play about. And yes, the Titans did have the 2nd best defense this year, just behind the Eagles, with 311 yards given up per game. So they've got things locked down on the defensive side of the ball for yards. But when you look at points, they gave up 27 points per game, which is 3rd worst in the league. The Niners were 4th worst. The Jags were 5th worst. The Cowboys were 2nd worst. And the worst was the Carolina Panthers. And when you go and look at the Titans depth chart, I mean, after trading away, you trade away Derrick Henry is out of the building. DeAndre Hopkins gets traded. You've got Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears in your backfield. Calvin Ridley is kind of a long lost sentiment now. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Yes, you have a Tyler Boyd, but it's just not much to work with. I mean, thankfully, they got Peter Skoronski a couple years ago. And when you look at some of the defensive side of the ball, yeah, they do have some players. Chidobe Awuzie, which is okay. You've got a Jerome Baker. You've got an Artie, a Jeffrey Simmons. But you need more talent overall because you cannot give up a lot of yards, and that's fine. But when you give up a lot of points, that's cause for concern. And I think this rebuild is really going to have to be predicated on developing a quarterback, which this GM will have a lot of a hand in, and also the fact of being able to develop a roster. Can you bring over some of those same sentiments that the Kansas City Chiefs had? Can you honestly do that? Can you replicate that success? I'm not asking you to take this team to 5 Super Bowls and win 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Nobody's asking you that. But can you bring that Andy Reid, the Brett Veach, the Lamar Hunt, or not Lamar Hunt, the Hunt family ownership, can you bring all of that over? Can you? Because that's what a lot of Titans fans are seeing. That's what I'm seeing as a Saints fan looking in on this. What a hire. The assistant GM for the last 16 years who has brought in the entire dynasty that's in there now. I'm not saying he picked them, because we know that that's Brett Veach. We know that that's Andy Reid for a good part. We understand that a lot of this team, though, was built while Mike Borgonzi was there. Borgonzi, however you say his name. So I know that's what the Titans are looking at. If he can bring some of that credibility over, I think the Titans have a great chance at rebuilding in 2 to 3 years. Again, I'll say it's about a 3-year rebuild, 2 if they're lucky, because you got to be able to develop Will Levis or take your quarterback of the future in year 1. Hope that he turns out like a Jaden Daniels or a CJ Stroud in year 1. If not, get him prepared for a year 2. You have to go get a ton of talent. You have to go get star players, because this roster is bare. I predicted the Titans not being great this year, and rightfully so. They have the number 1 overall pick. So let's see what they're able to do. Let's truly see what the Titans are able to do with a new GM in the building. Klint Kubiak leaves the New Orleans Saints and heads to Seattle as their new offensive coordinator. And as a New Orleans Saints fan, this hurts big time. It's just another dagger in the coffin, in the hearts of the fans, or whatever you want to call it, right? Because we were so excited when Klint Kubiak came over. And we saw the first 2 weeks of the season, which were the biggest highlight. Most points put up in the first two games of the season since the 2009 New Orleans Saints did it. Had all of us biting on that. Had all of us. I mean, hook, line, and sinker, you had us on it, man. Me included. Super Bowl in New Orleans. Klint Kubiak, build the statue. We saw the tweets from Nick Underhill. But then his tenure was effectively done in week 3 against the Eagles. It was. Truly was. Went up against the best defense now, who's playing in the Super Bowl. You lose your starting center. You got to shuffle your O-line. Injuries just continue to pile up. And Klint Kubiak was done. And more than anything, he was essentially out of the door when Dennis Allen got fired. Because his tenure was more than likely only going to be as long as Dennis Allen's. Because now with a new head coach coming in, apparently Mickey Loomis says that he's going to let the new coach hire their own staff, but now he's back, walking it back and saying, oh, well, there are some assistants and coordinators that I like to keep. Mickey's just got to make up his mind. But the Saints went from the 9th best team in points, it doesn't even feel like that, to the 24th best team in points, and from 14th in yards to 21st in yards. I mean, golly, man, just look at how solid that defense was. 5th in points, 4th in yards. Oh, man, it's just so tough to see. So tough to see. Crazy, dude. Sorry, guys. Just absolutely reminiscing on what the Saints were offensively and defensively at that time. But, I mean, there was nothing for Kubiak to work with. At certain points this year, you were fielding a practice squad roster. You had Spencer Rattler. You had Jake Hayner. You had no Olave. You had no Rashid Shaheed. Alvin Kamara got hurt at certain points. I mean, there was nothing for this team to be able to work with. You had guys like Bub Means and Kevin White catching passes. I mean, when the Saints social media account is posting highlights of Kendre Miller from the 2024 season, that's how you know it was bad. So I don't blame Kubiak for leaving because he's got a great coach over there, Mike McDonald. He's got a reasonable quarterback in Geno Smith. He's got some offensive talent between DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. There is a Kenneth Walker. There is a Zach Charbonnet over there. I mean, there are players in Seattle to work with offensively. So you can't get pissed at him for leaving. Does it hurt? Yeah. Because, again, we only got to see 2 weeks of him. He clearly couldn't adjust in the back half of games, or I'm not even going to knock on him for not being able to adjust with the most injuries in the league. which is a prime reflection of the New Orleans Saints strength and conditioning and the fact that they have the partnership with Ochsner Health as they do. Because these guys going outside of the building to seek their own treatment, you can't cover that up. When they don't want to be in the facilities, when they don't want to be there to train and they want to do it on their own, you can't cover that up. That is a prime definition of the problems with the strength and conditioning in New Orleans. And now it has fallen on you losing your offensive coordinator. It just has. That's what it is. That is the bread and butter of this situation. Because you're unable to keep your players healthy, who was arguably the hottest offensive coordinator candidate last year, getting the passing game coordinator in Klint Kubiak, being so excited for him. I remember reacting to his hire last year. And now he's out of the building. But again, can you blame him with an unknown head coach situation? Can you blame him with a bad general manager situation? Can you blame him with no franchise quarterback? I'm not saying Geno Smith is better, but he's damn sure better than Derek Carr. And you can come at me in the comments if you want. He's better than Derek Carr. And there is no question about that. He's got much more to work with over in Seattle. Like I said, as a Saints fan, this hurts big time. Because who's the next OC? We don't know until we get the head coach in place. So very tough. Hate to see him go. We only saw 2 weeks of the Kubiak attack. I was hoping that it was continuing to go on, but when you lose your center, who is basically your quarterback of your offensive line, when you have the most injuries in the league, when you have to start multiple practice squad rosters, but on actual Sundays in NFL games, that's going to make an offensive coordinator want to leave. There's no money to spend in free agency, so he wouldn't have an offense to work with. Let's give an update on the Saints head coaching search before we get out of here on episode 92 of the NFL with AJL. Again, love and appreciate all of you sticking with us through this entire show. It just continues to pile up for the New Orleans Saints why this has been the most unattractive head coaching position in decades. Horrible cap space, no franchise quarterback, still searching for your head coach, delusional general manager, passive owner who had to go around the GM to fire Dennis Allen, who's still defending Dennis Allen to this day. Shout out to you, DA, for getting the head defensive coordinator job with the Bears. I hope you do great over there, man, because you did great things for our Saints defense. And you were a great defensive play caller until you weren't in the head coaching years. Joe Brady has officially elected to pass on the Saints head coaching job and stay as offensive coordinator in Buffalo. What does that tell you with Joe Brady being someone that was with us in 2017 when Sean Payton was here? The most recent person that could have been here. Along with Aaron Glenn saying that he didn't want to come be with the Saints because he wanted the Saints to possibly get a new general manager. And he was recently with the Saints in 2020. So now that is two candidates that the Saints have lost out on. And they were both recently in the building and had a chance to be a head coach in the National Football League. And they passed on it. I don't blame them, though. Cliff Kingsbury also elected to stay in Washington. He doesn't want to come fill this head coaching position. No, I don't think Joe Brady or Aaron Glenn or Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, I guess if I had to argue, maybe Aaron Glenn could be cut for this rebuild, but this is a 3-year rebuild. 2 years if you're lucky. We know about the cap situation. We know about the old players. We know about the cap hits. Again, you've heard me talk about it ad nauseum here. It's not an attractive head coaching job. The Saints flew to Philadelphia to interview Kellen Moore as of January 27th, but I'll be honest with you, Kellen Moore's been covered up by the best roster and team in the league. He wasn't good in Dallas. He wasn't good with the Chargers. Yeah, you're freaking out over the fact that he put up 55 points in the conference championship game, but let's think about how he has the best offensive line in the NFL, a top 5 elite quarterback now in Jalen Hurts, the best running back and arguably the best player in the league in Saquon Barkley. And he's got the best defense in the NFL alongside Vic Fangio, helping him along the way. Kellen Moore's not cut out for a rebuild. And I'm going to just tell you that straight up. I mean, honestly, he's not cut out for it. I would love for us to get Kellen Moore as he was very much in his bag this year calling plays, but I don't forget what he did in Dallas. I don't forget what he did with the Chargers. Maybe he'll take the job. He's focused on the Super Bowl, though. We flew up to Philadelphia to interview him. Ooh, the Saints are freaking out about that 55 points that they just put up. Please take it into context. Mickey, Gail, Dennis Lauscha. Please take it into context. Please. He's going to come here and it's going to be the polar opposite. One of the worst rosters in the league. One of the worst general managers because Howie Roseman, take a freaking bow. I mean, Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond in the same offseason? And then you get Vic Fangio, and then you have Saquon and MVP conversations, and then you have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in Defensive Rookie of the Year competitions. Yeah, it's going to be the complete opposite over here in New Orleans. So, yeah, while I would like to have an offensive mind in Kellen Moore, he's not cut out for this rebuild. Any next coach that comes in is going to be a scapegoat. We know that. We're interviewing Mike McCarthy apparently at the end of this week, but reports are saying that the initial talks were not enamoring. I wonder why. Mike McCarthy probably is just being dead honest with you. He probably doesn't want Mickey Loomis here either. Now, I do think, all things considered, you guys have seen me talk about, I would be grateful and I feel honored to have Mike McCarthy in our coaching situation because he's been in the league, 13 years. 9 of those years he's went to the playoffs. 3 straight 12-win seasons, Super Bowl winner, experience. If anybody could handle the rebuild, it would be him. 11-11 in the playoffs. Like, Mike McCarthy is arguably the most qualified candidate for this job. It's not saying much, but again, the franchise and the fans should feel honored that Mike McCarthy wants to come here possibly. And I agree with Matt Moscona off of after further review. Like, McCarthy is just waiting for your call for you to say yes. He wants to continue to be a head coach. Hell, I thought that Dallas should have retained him. And then Brian Schottenheimer, really? Clearly it was contract talks. Jerry wanted to have the control, not pay him that much money, so whatever, right? But I don't know if McCarthy could handle the rebuild. I don't. And of course the initial talks aren't probably going well because you're the worst situation in the league. You are the worst situation in the National Football League head coaching wise. And clap it up, Mickey Loomis. Clap it up for you telling us that we don't have to sell. We don't have to advertise our job. It'll advertise itself because it's a head coaching position. There's only 32 of them in the greatest sports league in the world. Well, guess what, Mickey? We're the last team to make a hire. We're still looking for that head coach, buddy. Oh, we've got stability. We've got great ownership. Stop lying, please. Stop lying. We haven't won anything since Drew retired, and we knew that it was going to be this ugly. So just stop it. Stop. Please. You're embarrassing yourself. I'd rather you just smack gum and let Dennis Lauscha answer questions or whoever. I don't know. Bring Joe Woods into the presser. I don't know. But this job continues to prove, I mean, when you have 2 offensive coordinators, 3 hot candidates in the coordinator/head coaching market, turn away and either go to other teams or stay with their teams, what does that say about your head coaching job, Mickey Loomis? And it's a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer that because we all know what it means, which brings me to my final point of this episode. I still think Darren Rizzi should be the hire because he wants to be here and he has the mojo for it. Yes, it's still within the Sean Payton regime, but guess what? You're probably not going to have to pay him a bag. I love Darren Rizzi's attitude and just commitment to the game. He wants to be here. He does. I think all things considered, he would be okay cut out for the rebuild. Now, I understand he's not a head coach. He doesn't really have that head coaching experience, but he was the assistant head coach to Dennis Allen for whatever that's worth. Rizzi showed that fire. And when people inside the locker room like Alvin Kamara, the best player on this team, the most loyal player on this team, are saying that his coach pick is Darren Rizzi, I think that should tell the fans and the franchise everything because he was in the locker room with Darren Rizzi. He was on that 2-game win streak. If you get 3 in a row, then you can call it a streak on back-to-back wins. He had more wins in less weeks than Dennis Allen did in his tenure of 9 weeks with the Saints, winning 2 games and then losing 7 in a row. Darren Rizzi should be the hire here because he wants to be here. He understands the situation, and he's probably not afraid of shying away from it, knowing his attitude. You won't have to pay him a lot. You can make this head coaching search very simple. That's if Darren Rizzi wants the job. So all things considered, right? Like, we can understand that. But if it's down to Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy, and Darren Rizzi, I guess take your pick. But Rizzi should probably be the hire. If the talks aren't going well with Mike McCarthy, and you're going to be jaded by the fact that the Eagles just put up 55 points in an NFC championship game, not understanding that he's with the best ownership and the best GM and the best roster and the best defense, that's going to cover you up as OC just a little bit. I'm not taking anything away from Kellen Moore. Please don't think that I am. But if you watch what he did with the Chargers and the Cowboys, you understand where I'm coming from. This was episode 92 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate everybody jumping into the show tonight as we are creeping up on episode 100. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you're right here tapped in with me on the show. Of course, before we get out of here, y'all please make sure to like and share that stream wherever you may be watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Please hit the bell so you never miss a post. The QR code is every bit of social media and podcast content at the NFL with AJL. The link tree is down in the description. It's in the description of all of our medium form clips that we put out for the show, whether it's Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, LinkedIn, any engagement that you give us, we highly, highly appreciate it. If you'd like to drop a super chat or a super thanks on YouTube, would greatly appreciate that. No donation is too big or too small for this channel. Or if you would like to contact me on social media to donate to the show, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Again, this was episode 92 of the NFL with AJL. Super love you guys for tuning in. You had so many options and you chose to stick with me for the show tonight. I love y'all. I need y'all, and I will see you guys in the next one.